My chain may not look rusty, but it is worn out, and it's time to replace it. Lucky for you, that means I get to show you how to replace your motorcycle chain with a new Rivet type master link. We're going to be working on my 2014 Kawasaki Ninja 300. Just about everything in this video should apply to you, with the exception of loosening and adjusting your rear wheel. That's going to vary a little bit from bike to bike, so get familiar with how to adjust your rear wheel. Tools needed for this are going to be various ratchets and wrenches for loosening and adjusting your rear wheel. A set of calipers is helpful for measuring the master link and the rivet end, more on that later. And you'll need a chain tool capable of breaking, pressing, and riveting your new master link. The one shown here is a Bikemaster tool. I'll explain how to use this one in a little bit of detail, but whatever tool you have, look over the instructions and get familiar with how to use it. So first things first, you'll need to remove the cotter pin from your axle nut to loosen the wheel. You probably have a traditional style cotter pin, so bend the ends and pull it out. I use a safety pin on my bike for convenience, but same difference. Remove that and then loosen the axle nut. Once that's loosened, loosen it up enough so that the wheel can slide forward and backward on the swing arm, but no need to take it completely off. Then loosen your chain adjusters. Again, this will vary a little bit from bike to bike, but loosen it up enough so that you can slide the rear wheel forward on the swing arm. Now with plenty of slack to work with, we can select a link to brake. If you have the OEM chain still on your bike, it's probably endless and there will be no master link. If you have a master link already on your chain, that might be the easiest link to choose to brake. Shown right there. I'm just going to go ahead and pick one of the factory links to brake just for demonstration. For my tool, anything 520 pitch and larger, it recommends grinding the old rivet head before breaking the chain so that you don't damage the braking pin of the tool. So we'll need to do that next. I'm going to be using a Dremel tool. It makes pretty quick work of that. You can use anything you have, even a hand file will do. It might take a little bit, but it will work. I'm going to cover my bike with an old blanket so I don't make a mess, and then we can grind the rivet head. With that finished, now we can get the tool ready to break the chain. Throughout each step of this, I'm going to be showing you in detail how to use this Bikemaster tool, but yours may vary. Like for my tool, first step, assemble the handle. You'll need to select the correct pin for the size chain you have for breaking the chain, and the correct tip size. This is a 520 chain, so we have the 520 tip guide and braking pin. Go ahead and put that onto the alignment bolt, slide the pin through, and then assemble the push bolt. The alignment bolt holds it into the tool and up against the link of the chain. The push bolt, which is the smaller one, is the one you actually wrench on for braking, pressing, and riveting the chain. For my tool, it recommends that you leave the tip sticking out about 3 to 5 millimeters for breaking the chain. We'll slide that into the large threads of the tool here, and the back side you see through is where the old pin is going to press out. Get your tool lined up correctly with the pin you intend to break, and start tightening it down. It should be a little bit difficult at first, but will get easier as you go. And with the chain off your bike, it's a good time for you to inspect your sprockets. You've likely heard that you should replace your chain and sprockets in a pair, and while this is true if your sprockets are worn, in my opinion, if they're in good shape, I'd say just leave them. You want to look at the teeth to see if there's any wear. If they look hooked like a shark's tooth in any way, you're going to want to replace them. This one here has some slight wear, and I wouldn't reuse a sprocket if it looked like that, and they can get much worse than this. So check your sprockets, don't forget to check the front one too, and decide if you need to replace them along with your chain. Mine are in good shape, so on with the new chain. I'm using an RK chain. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested. Along with the chain, we've got our new master link, Rivet type master link. Your chain may or may not come with one, so figure out if you need to order it separately. There's also the clip type master link. I don't use those, but they are another option. Your chain's likely to come with a ton of grease from the factory, so you may want to put down something so you don't make a mess. Now this grease is great for storage, but if you leave it on the chain, when you go for your first ride, it's going to sling everywhere, all over your bike and all over your wheel. So I recommend that you clean it off the best you can. A heat gun helps heat the grease up a little bit, which is what I chose to do. Don't overdo it if you use a heat gun. You don't want to melt the seals, but it certainly makes getting the grease off a little bit easier. Now slide your new chain into place. If your bike has a front sprocket cover that makes it difficult to access the front sprocket for this part, you may need to remove that as well. With our new master link opened up, you can see we've got a little bit of grease included, one of the side plates, and then the seals. We need to pre-assemble part of our master link before we put it on the new chain. You'll need to lubricate the pins with a little bit of grease, and you'll also need to lubricate the seals and put the first two seals on. If you're using a non-sealed chain, everything in this video is the exact same with the exception of the seals. Also, if you're using a clip type master link, everything in this video is also the same with the exception of the step where we rivet the ends. In place of that, you'd be installing your clip. You'll also want to apply a little bit of grease to the back side of the chain for when we press the pins through. Now with our link pre-assembled with the back two seals in place, we can slide it onto the chain. Then put the next 2 seals in place and get the side plate started. The side plate is a tight fit and will require a tool to press it on all of the way, but you should be able to get it started by hand, just enough to hold it in place. Now we can assemble the tool for pressing the link. Use the rivet tip on the end of the alignment bolt. I know it's called the rivet tip, but it's also used for pressing the side plate for this tool. And then assemble the push bolt. Assemble that into the tool just like before. And then for this step, we'll also need the press plate. You can see the slot in there goes against the back side of the chain link for the rivet ends to sit in. The tool is required for this step because the fit between the side plate and the pins is very tight. Usually, I start by placing the tip of my tool in the middle of the side plate to get things started. However, if I try to press the whole length, keeping it in the middle, it usually doesn't want to go on smoothly. So, once I get it started, I'll alternate to the left and right side of the plate to make sure that it goes on each pin evenly. Don't rush this step. You don't want to accidentally press the plate on too much. If you press it too much, it may bind and you'll need to redo it. That's where our calipers come in. Usually the correct amount for your master link is to press it so that it's the same distance as your other links that came on the chain. Mine's not quite there, so we'll need to go a little more. Perfect. The goal here is to expose enough to flare the end of the pins, or to expose the slots for a clip-type master link to slide into place. For my tool, to rivet the new master link, the only thing we need to change is to swap out the press plate for the anvil. The rivet tip that was used to press the side plate on is also used to rivet the end of the new master link. Get your tool in place and start to tighten it down to flare the end of the pins. This is another step you do not want to rush because you don't want to accidentally over flare the pins. If you flare them too much, they'll crack and you'll have to restart. Just think about how tight it was to get that side plate on. It's an extremely tight fit, so only a little bit of flare is required to hold this plate in place. Once they start to flare, you'll see they'll mushroom out like so. Again, use your calipers to measure. I like to measure mine against the other rivets, just for comparison. Mine needs a little bit more, so we'll keep going. Every chain manufacturer might be a little bit different in what they recommend, so please check that and make sure you get it riveted the correct amount. But as a rule of thumb, usually about 0.5 to 0.7 millimeters of flare, that would be beyond what your pin was originally, is acceptable. Any more than that and you risk cracking the end of the pin. They should look like this when you're done. If there's any cracks in the end, that means you screwed up and you'll need to restart. So now with our wheel in its current position, the chain is way too slack. So before we tighten everything back down, we'll need to get that adjusted. This is where your bike will probably vary, so get familiar with how to adjust your wheel. But the idea is that you'll need to adjust your chain adjusters so that you achieve the correct amount of chain slack while also keeping your wheel in alignment. The chain adjusters should have slots that line up so that you can make the left and right side match perfectly. If you get this wrong, your wheel will be misaligned and your bike may not handle perfectly. But once you get the wheel aligned correctly and you get the correct amount of chain slack, you're good to start to tighten things down. For measuring your chain slack, you want to measure it at about halfway between your two sprockets. For my bike, that's right about there on the swing arm. Position your measuring tool vertically and measure the amount of free play in your motorcycle chain. You can see here the rivet end is aligning with the 60 millimeters on my tape. So moving it up and down, it goes between 60 and 30 millimeters. Giving us 30 millimeters of chain slack. That's what I like for my bike. Every bike may be a little bit different, so check your swing arm. Usually you can find the value there, or your motorcycle's manual. Once you get everything set up how you like it, snug the axle nut down, not all the way, but just enough to get it held in place, and also tighten your chain adjusters. And now we can torque the axle nut all the way tight. I like to use a torque wrench for this step. The torque value on my bike is about 72 foot-pounds. For your castle nut, you'll need at least one set of holes that align to put your cotter pin through. If none of them align, it's okay. It is acceptable to tighten it a little bit beyond torque spec to achieve this. Never loosen it to do this, but going a little bit tighter is okay. Once you've got a set of holes lined up, go ahead and put your pin through. If you have a traditional cotter pin, you're going to want to replace it. It's not a good idea to reuse cotter pins. I use safety pins, so easy peasy. And that's it. You're done. Thanks for watching.